So the history of the program. The National AIDS Program was officially established in 2000 under the first National AIDS Manager, Mrs. Nevis Huggins, who has since retired from the service. The Secretariat was located on Church Street in the now dilapidated Ministry of Health building, if some of you remember. Specific to testing, we started our first outreach testing in the year of 2005. Now this is important because if you remember how testing was done before, it meant that you would have to go to a doctor's office, be counseled, or get the information, then go to the lab, then come back to your doctor's office perhaps 2 weeks later or more to get your result. But in 2005, we decided that we needed, after looking at the data and recognizing that many persons were not accessing HIV testing or not getting tested, we decided that we needed to go to them. And so we had our first outreach testing in the square with the support of, it was then B-Mobile. And what we did was that we provided persons with top-ups, if you remember, those of you who were part of it then, we gave them $10 top-ups, and we also had a little raffle going on for the choice of winning a Nokia phone at the time, and the grand prize being a Motorola. That was our first outreach testing in the square. Treatment became available in the year of 2006. So this is the program structure. So the National AIDS Program is under the Ministry of Health. However, there is a National Advisory Council on HIV and AIDS, what we call NACA, and it forms the country coordinating mechanism. This country coordinating mechanism is required as part of our national response or any national response. You're required to have this CCM in order to access any sort of funding outside of St. Kitts and Nevis or your country. The CCM is responsible for policy influence and for advocating for resources and the effective implementation of the response. There is the National AIDS Secretariat in St. Kitts and a similar AIDS coordinating unit in Nevis. And we are the implementing arms of the NACA. Just to give you a quick overview of what the Naca structure looks like. As you can see, the Prime Minister sits at the top. Then there's the Ministry of Health, and the National AIDS Advisory Council reports to the Ministry of Health, who reports to the Prime Minister. Under that, we have the National AIDS Program and the National AIDS Coordinating Unit in Nevis. Then we have what we call line ministries or focal ministries. Back in the day when this was established, each of these ministries had a designated focal person who was responsible for carrying out HIV-related activities within their ministries. And then we have the civil society organizations. Okay, so some statistics very quickly. Now I'm going to give you statistics up to 2017, although I will make mention of 2018. The reason why you're not getting all of 2018's data is because 2018, okay, all right, we're still in 2017. So we're looking at the incidence from 1984, which was when we had our first diagnosed case. And the orange brownish color one represents the total number. So from 1984 to 2017, we've had 414 cases of HIV reported. The blue represents males, the pink females, and the green unknown. Unfortunately, back then, there was a period where we had some issues where persons were not documenting the forms properly, so we were not able to identify the gender of some of those persons. So you can see here that we've had 414 cases, and of the 414 cases, 214 were male and 145 females. So this is AIDS now. Again, from 1984 to 2014. We paused at 2014 because we changed the way HIV deaths are reported after 2014. And it's kind of difficult now to unless a doctor actually writes immunosuppression on the form, it's kind of difficult to track the deaths. And also, we were hoping that persons were doing very well on their treatment, and so we were having less death. But you will see that that's not necessarily the case. So since 1984 to 2014, we had 149 deaths, of which 98 were 98 were males and 40 females, and 11 unknown. Next slide, please. So if you look at the deaths now from 2007 to 2000, a 10-year perspective, from 2007 to 2017, you can see that in 2007, we had 6 cases where we had 3 males, 3 females. 2008, we did very well. We had 0 cases, perhaps. It could mean that nobody died or nobody reported being dying as a consequence of having HIV or AIDS-related complications. 2009, we had 1 case. In 2010, 1 case. In 2011, 2. 2012, something happened. And we're seeing 10 cases. But what I want you to take note of is the blue. Men. Men. So we've established that more men have tested positive for HIV. More men have tested or indicated that they have AIDS, and we also have more men dying from AIDS-related complications. Next slide, please. So I want to give you an idea of what the antiretroviral therapy looks like. So as of 2017, combined St. Kitts and Nevis, we had 78 persons on treatment. Please note that I said that we had 214 males living with HIV, and I can't remember the exact females, but we have only 78 on treatment. There are approximately 295 persons currently living with HIV in St. Kitts and Nevis. How do we work this out? We look at the number of persons that we've tested positive, reported, minus those who died, and it gives us at least 295. But we only have 78 persons on treatment as of 2017, of which 57 were male and 21 female. This is something that we do on an annual basis. We try to do what is called a treatment cascade, where we look at the number of new cases that we had per year, and we look to see how persons would have progressed into care. So in 2017, we had 10 new cases. Of those 10 cases, 8 of them had their first CD4 and viral load in the first 3 months. Your CD4 and your viral loads are what we call your biomarkers. These are the tests that we use to determine how healthy you are, to determine how we should proceed with treatment. So of the 10 who tested, 8 went into treatment, had their viral load, in the first 3 months, and then those same 8 in the 6 months, and 5 of them went on antiretroviral therapy. Next slide. So let's talk about testing. Now, I would have said to you our first outreach testing started in 2005 in Independence Square, but what we like to call the true rapid actually started in 2017. Let me explain. So when we started this outreach in 2005, persons were not able to get their results as quickly. What we had to do was transport the blood back and forth, the real blood, the vials back and forth to the lab, and then they would get the results hopefully by the ending of the day or the day after. We continued doing this in communities and national testing days in the square, but the process was either the lab would set up in a business nearby. When we did it with Scotiabank, they would set up in Scotiabank's conference room, or some of the other businesses might allow us to have the lab there, or we would have to transport the blood back and forth. But in 2017, we rolled out what we are referring to as the true rapid testing, where persons are counseled, tested, and get their results all in 20 minutes. That was in 2017. There are 2 master trainers in St. Kitts, and they're here in the room, and I'd like to recognize them now. They are Mrs. Lucine Pemberton Vaughn in the back, and Miss Andrea Williams. These are the persons responsible for training the over 30 rapid testers that we have in St. Kitts and Nevis right now. Some of you are in here again today. The testing time has decreased from 2 weeks to 20 minutes to now approximately 12 minutes. You can have your HIV result back in 12 minutes. So in St. Kitts, we use 2 rapid test kits to validate or ascertain a result. And then we use a third, or what we call a tiebreaker, which is a non-rapid test from the JNF lab to confirm all positive tests. So if a test is positive, we do not just use that data from the rapid test. We send it to the lab for confirmation using a different type of test. Approximately 70% more women than men get tested. So if we have 1,000 persons getting tested, you will probably see 200 men, 300 men, 250, 300 men. In June of last year, we tested 1,945 persons as part of a special campaign to get persons to know their status. And of that 1,945, 273 were males. The rest were females. Yet the equivalent of men who test positive for HIV and women are, as you can see, on the rise high. So let's talk quickly about the testing. So the provision of HIV rapid testing, we do it in traditional and non-traditional sites. You can get tested at the National AIDS Secretariat or the National AIDS Program in Nevis. We use key population sites, which will be private houses, or as Lucine likes to say, wherever you are, we will come, even in your car, okay? We do it in health centers. All health centers can provide HIV rapid testing. We have the outpatients department at the JNF lab, and we have 2 doctors' offices. We provide male and female condoms at the 2 offices to individuals, bars and shops, female sex, exchanging sex, and these are formerly known as sex workers, but we use the term now female exchanging sex and MSMs. It is important to note this because of all the data that we've seen regionally, and even what we're seeing in St. Kitts, these 2 key populations are at higher risk for HIV, and we're seeing greater incidence among those populations. We do education sessions within the schools, the workplaces, the churches, the communities, and non-traditional settings. We go to the barbershops, we go to the hairdressers, we go to the ferry terminal, we go on people's workplaces, construction sites, we go on the strip, we go into clubs, wherever we are called, this is where we provide the sessions. So this is how the testing process happens. First you are counseled, then you're tested, and you are linked to a provider of your choice if you're positive. That provider then makes sure that you have your biomarkers, which is your CD4 and your viral load tests, and they recommend that you go on treatment. Prior to 2013, persons were placed on treatment if they had a CD4 of 500. What we mean by CD4 or 500, we're talking about your healthy cells, those cells that help to boost your immune system. So if your CD4, or those healthy cells that you had in your body, was at 500, an average, a healthy person should be about 1,500, but if you have about 500, we would have placed you on treatment. However, the WHO is now saying test and treat. As soon as a person tests positive, regardless of their CD4, we place them on treatment. The rationale behind this is because we want to have a happy virally suppressed patient. If persons are placed on treatment early, within 6 months, they can be virally suppressed. And that's good news. Okay. Let's look at quickly some successes of the National AIDS Program. So we've seen a reduction of stigma and discrimination in healthcare facilities. And this was in 2013 and 2015. We actually conducted surveys within the health sector to find out to measure stigma and discrimination. Following those surveys, we did some interventions where we trained auxiliary workers all the way up to administration on recognizing and reducing stigma and discrimination in healthcare facilities. We also developed something called a code of conduct. If you go to several doctors' offices, including dental offices, you should see a blue long poster that says, in this facility, and there's the name, we are committed to, and it lists the types of services, providing you fair and equal services, etc. So then we have the sister project, of which we have some of the persons who would have been through that project. The sisters is a sisters informing sisters on topics of HIV and AIDS. And the reason behind this is because we're seeing more women being tested, yet we recognize that there was this struggle, this gender inequality and negotiating sex among women, especially in certain what we call vulnerable positions or situations. And so we developed this program called the Sister Project. And the reason I need to note it here is because we were the first in the Caribbean region to do this program. Other countries have since adopted it. It's a 6-week program that we take these women through, where we empower them to be confident about themselves and their sexuality, and then go on to teach and reach other women. Since we've started the Sister Project, we've had men asking, what about us? We need to develop a special program for the men also. All right. So I noted that we have over 30 certified testers, and currently at least 16 sites where you can get your HIV true rapid tests. In 2012, we did an Equality for All, a human rights awareness campaign. This Equality for All campaign we did actually was, again, we were the first in the region to do this. And since then, the Pan-American organization, PANCAP, Response to HIV, they have started something called the Justice for All. This 2012 campaign basically took us around the island, where we met with different groups, where we had town halls and schools and different groups, and we spoke to them about human rights issues, because we felt a number of the issues relating to health, not just HIV, relating to health, stem from human rights, lack of human rights awareness, and some breaches. And of course, you would have heard the PS mention the successful elimination of HIV and syphilis from a positive mother to her unborn child. Again, this is a big thing for us because we are one of few countries in the region. I think there's just about 7 of us right now in the region and in the entire world who have actually reached this status. Okay, so this is my last slide, and I just want to give you some issues for consideration. We definitely need to improve services for key populations. People who feel stigmatized, people who feel marginalized will not come to certain settings if they feel that they will not get fair and equal services. We need to have greater and more meaningful involvement of the civil society organizations. They are the ones who can actually reach those populations and groups that we within the ministry or the official government cannot reach. We need to have greater involvement of the private sector. I started off by saying that the national response is a multi-sectoral response. It requires each and every one, including the private sector. And then we need to have champions for the cause of testing and stigma reduction. We can only achieve our 90-90-90 or the ending AIDS by 2030 if we have persons standing up and being champions for this. Hence why we've invited you here today. And finally, we need to have resources for the sustainability of the national response. Thank you.